We went in through the front entrance, as you can make out if you've been there before, and we went up the stairs. We went towards the right and up the main stairs, which is the way you'd normally go in. So this is just going up the main stairs that lead from the entrance hall, the main entrance hall. It was absolutely packed out. I thought there would just perhaps be me there looking around, but it was utterly packed. So we're now on to the first floor. And to the right is the English, or used to be the English department. So turn to the right, and at the end of the corridor there you might eventually just be able to see what used to be the old library where Mr. Spenley used to teach. This is that's room 8 there, which was my form room in the first year. And this room, I think there's another room on the right here before you go into the old library somewhere, which was Mr. Halligan's room. This is what was the old library, believe it or not. It's tiny, but it also was Mr. Spenley's form room, and I had A-level English in there. So back along the main top corridor, and you can see that I think that one is Mr. Halligan's room. He taught English when I was at this school. That's Amy, who is my niece and was good enough to show me around. She works at the Heath, so she came around with me and showed me around, but I knew exactly where everything was anyway because I'd been there for 6 years or so, a long time ago. So that was where English was taught by Mr. Halligan, in that room. And then a bit further down the corridor towards where we came up the stairs, there's another room on the left as we're looking at it here. So if you go into this room here on the left, this eventually, that is room 8, which was my form room in the first year, where my form tutor was Mr. Williams, who was an English teacher. He taught English as well, and I sat in here along with 1 Alpha 1, which was the first year class that I was in. And Mr. Williams used to sit at the front there. I used to have a desk there. There was blackboards, well, green boards, all gone now. It's all whiteboards and marker pens. Back to the main corridor, and that's where we just came up. So, but this is the top main corridor with lots and lots of classrooms going on and off. Coming up soon is history rooms on the left and geography rooms on the right, as was. Not sure what they are now. So that would have been, I think, Miss Gent's room, which was geography when I was there. This was belonged to Miss Gent. That's, you can just about see, because it's dark out, but you can just about see the yard outside. So if you go back out of the geography room and turn to the right, back along the main corridor on the first floor, I think this is Mr. Ryan's room. I had Mr. Ryan in here for history, I think in about the 3rd year, and this is the room where he taught. I can't remember actually. I can't remember whether, I know there was another history teacher called Mr. Daniels, and another one I think, can't remember his name. And I don't know where their rooms were. I can't remember whether they taught in the same room. I think I might have had Mr. Daniels in this same room, as well as Mr. Ryan for history at some point, but I just can't remember. So back out onto the main corridor and turn left as we came out of Mr. Ryan's room. There's the steps that go down into the schoolyard. So we would have come up there to go up here for history or geography. Not sure whose room this was. This was another one off the main corridor, the first floor corridor. Heading back down towards the bridge, which is at the far end of the top corridor. So we're heading along these rooms here. I've forgotten. I'm not sure whose these rooms belong to. I think this I had geography in here with Mr. Finn at one stage very early on. I think in the first year. No, I'm saying there it's the language lab, but it wasn't, because we haven't gone over the bridge yet. This is the bridge. You can't really tell because it's dark outside, but this is actually a part that goes over a part of the yard, so this takes you into another building. And this is the room where I used to do French with Miss Gumbleton. I used to do it really badly, actually, and must have done it for the first maybe 3 years, and dropped it as soon as I possibly could. But this is where it happened. So back out onto the main corridor, going towards what I think was the language lab. It used to have booths in it where we used to had headsets and used to record French speech. That got ripped out even when I was still at school, and it just became an ordinary classroom. So I think that is that. On the other side, I think that was Mrs. Cooper's room. It's not. I wasn't taught by Mrs. Cooper, but I seem to remember she was based in there. There was a Mr. Room as well in one of these rooms. I can't remember which one it was. I think that was Mr. Room's one. Yeah, that must have been Mr. Room's room. I think I've been taught in there as well. Mrs. Harrison rings a bell. And then just out here, this is the end of the corridor now. That window looks out onto the grounds, and then you go onto a landing here, and you go downstairs. Straight ahead, I think, is what was the canteen, and still is the canteen, I think. So this was where you used to come for. I used to go home most of the time, or go somewhere else for me lunch. But that's where you'd come for your lunch. And then that's the way we just came down those steps. So along there, that was the library, and still is, I believe, the library. But it was very different when I was there. Now it's all separate rooms, but then it was all one big room with lots of shelves and lots of books in it, computers and stuff like that. Now it's all separated into individual study rooms. This bit is almost unrecognisable to what it was when I was there. I think some of the rooms at the very end were there when I was here, but and I think I had English with Mr. Halligan in one of them when I was doing A level, but I'm not sure which was which. It looks totally different now. So you follow this right the way through the library to the other side of the library. This then there's some stairs here that lead down to the science block, which was built while I was at the school. And just underneath the stairs here is the entrance to Mr. Oakes's physics lab, and that was also my form room for I think a year. Mr. Oakes was my form tutor. We used to line up outside here and go in. Does it say Mr. Oakes? It does, yeah, Mr. Oakes.
Yeah, that's alright. Oh yeah, it's definitely the same. Yeah, I think we probably are. Let's see. Oh no, GCSE was before GCSE came in. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, okay. It must have been, yeah, yeah. Oh, looks like it's never been cleaned since then. It's quite scary. Thank you.
Then back out. This was this long corridor was built while I was at the school, and there's quite a few science labs lead off this block. I think Mrs. Jakeman I was taught by in one of these.
Yeah. Go through agony. I've been through nightmares in most of these rooms. Used to have. Yeah, I think we did the last.
That was the room where I think we had biology with Mrs. Jakeman. And then it's out the other end of the science block and back into the main school building. We're on the ground floor now. So if you come through, that's where we would have come down if we hadn't gone through the library. And this now leads along towards the exit again. But down that way is the music room and the drama workshop. And lots of like craft design, technology type things. So down here on the right was the music room where I was taught music by Miss Gilbert.
This one, yeah.
And down that way, further down, is the drama workshop and the CDT and GED and art and pottery. That I did go down there and have a look, but I've not filmed it. It is totally different from what it was when I was there. Completely all separate rooms now, whereas it was all kind of open plan back then.
Yeah.
And then this leads back out. This actually comes out underneath the bridge that we crossed over earlier on. So to the left is the yard and the sports hall and tennis courts. You can't see it because it's too dark, but and actually the new building apparently is down there that's going to replace this old building.
I know, yeah.
And then back into the main ground floor corridor. Along here, I think there was science labs again along here. On the right, as we look at it now.
No, 2001 now. Yeah, it's going to be way too recent, isn't it? I don't actually remember
That door there, the one that was open there, that leads out into the yard, and the steps lead up onto the main
if you go up them stairs.
upper corridor. Then further up now, back full circle towards where the entrance hall is. And the office.
English. Definitely wasn't English then.
This is the hall. This is the main hall. So I certainly recognise the floor, and it's exactly the same. I don't know who I'm talking to there. I didn't. They may have recognised me. I didn't recognise anyone. I did see Mr. Jackson, maths teacher Mr. Jackson. Looked pretty much the same. And Mr. Mansfield. For me, went wrong here. I did film a lot more of the hall and some of the corridor where the sixth form rooms were, and quite a few other places, but it didn't come out on the film. So I'm just left with a view of the floor in the hall, really. This is heading back out now into the main entrance hall. It's really packed with people, so you can't really see much of what's going on. But this is where we started, really, where we came in.
So is that where you're...
Little tour around the Heath. It is very soon to be, if not already, demolished. So, last chance to see it. Thanks for watching.